Hello and welcome. My name is Evgeny Rusakov and you're watching TVP World Interview from Vilnius. On the 17th of September, it was announced that one of the most popular late-night shows in the US, Jimmy Kimmel Live, will be indefinitely suspended. That happened after the host commented on the murder of political activist Charlie Kirk on his program. According to Reuters, Jimmy Kimmel criticized the MAGA gang on scoring political points out of this. To discuss this in specific and other related topics, we are joined today by the American Studies expert, Alexandra Filippenko. Alexandra, glad to see you in our studio. Thank you for coming.
Thank you for having me.
Jimmy Kimmel Live, late night show. I was a big fan, to be honest. I guess you as well.
Yes,
me too.
So,
what was this show in specific for the audience in the United States?
Well, I must say that in general, late-night shows and this format is classical. It's in the DNA of American TV viewers. It's part of the American culture because these kind of shows, the late-night shows, when at 9 p.m. or 10 p.m. you can turn on the TV and watch a light version, maybe a satirical version of political news of the day, then see some movie stars, some music, and that's it. That started in 1954 in the United States from The Tonight Show. So millions of Americans watched Jimmy Kimmel Live and other comedians every night. They were one of the top-rated, not only comedians, but in general, top-rated programs on TV. In the past few years, we must say that, yes, of course, viewership has moved towards YouTube, Netflix, HBO, but still, those ratings of those TV shows, of the satirical late-night shows, were in comparison to top-rated TV programming and classical political programming. Each and every day, Jimmy Kimmel had a viewership of almost 2 million people in the United States, so he was a very powerful voice.
So now you tell me, were all these late-night shows always a bastion of free speech?
Of course, because as usual, we may think even about clowns. They were right on the near to the kings, for example. And those late-night shows, they always were very critical of any politicians, of Democrats, of Republicans, of anyone, of independents, of anyone. They were very on point. They were very satirical. And of course, as we know, President Trump and in general Donald Trump, before even becoming president, he gave a lot of points to discuss, let's say. He gave a lot of opportunities.
Well, yes, he did.
So that is why he was usually the protagonist of the monologues of those satirical writers, of those late-night show hosts. And President Trump didn't like it.
Just to be fair, was Jimmy Kimmel criticizing the previous Joe Biden's administration?
He was laughing at Joe Biden, too. Maybe Joe Biden didn't give that much to laugh about, but definitely when he fell off the stairs, when he stumbled, when he was not sure what he's talking about, Jimmy Kimmel always pointed out.
Another late-night show host, Stephen Colbert, he also criticized Trump, and looks like his it doesn't even look like his show will also be closed in May 2026. So his running channel stated that this is purely a financial decision. What do you think about this? What's your take?
Well, again, yes, we must say, to be fair, we must say that all of the shows, everyone lost viewership because people moved to different other platforms.
Already,
yes,
right.
But they are very, very popular. They're one of the most popular programs on those channels. So it is a little weird to hear about it as a purely financial decision. But both of those late-night show hosts were on channels that were trying to get a merger. CBS was buying another programming station, Stephen Colbert, and maybe it had something to do with cancellation of Stephen Colbert because they needed the approval of the Trump administration to buy those channels. Also, the same goes to ABC that hosted Jimmy Kimmel Live, and the owner, Disney is only planning right now to buy a huge platform platform Fubo that is showing sports events. And in order to get the approval from the Trump administration, they need the approval. They probably wanted to show that they are very friendly to Donald Trump, and when Donald Trump doesn't like something, they will also follow suit. So those mergers, those financial decisions, yes, this is probably part of financial decision, but with that political pressure.
Well, I'll be honest with you, it's very sad to see that kind of things are happening in the US, but we'll come back to that because one thing that we've also discussed before the interview was Stephen Colbert's speech regarding this Jimmy Kimmel's issue. So, and I have to say that there was loads of solidarity, and he was really very honest.
Yes, exactly. And this was very touching. This was very touching. And I think everyone is, I want to use this word, in a state of shock, because no one expected this to happen. It came out of thin air. The channel ABC, of course, they saw the criticism of President Trump towards Jimmy Kimmel, but if they wanted to close it down, ABC could have went to court with the administration to stand by their hero, by their face. He was the face of ABC channel. So everyone is, I must say, in kind of a state of shock because no one expected ABC to act this way.
Another 2 late-night shows are coming in our queue. It's Seth Meyers and Jimmy Fallon's late-night shows, because Donald Trump was really, I could say, very strict about those two as well. He said, like, do it, close them, they don't have any audience ratings and all that stuff. What do you think about this?
This is a very interesting point because those programs seem to be on the safe side, and for one reason only, coming back to what CBS and ABC needed. They needed the approval of the Trump administration, of the Federal Commission on TV and radio stations. They needed the approval for the merger, But NBC, the channel that hosts those two programs, Seth Meyers and Jimmy Fallon, they are not planning on any mergers anytime soon. And probably they will not need any of the Trump administration approval for anything. So that is why they're maybe on the safe side.
But Alexandra, can you tell me why does Donald Trump have such complicated relations with all those late-night shows?
He doesn't like being criticized on those channels night by night in front of the millions of people. Because, of course, those late-night shows are viewed by the millions of Americans. And even though President Trump says that they lose ratings and they lose viewership, no, they still have millions. Let's just compare. Let's see the most famous TV programs, for example, Hannity on Fox News, on conservative Fox News. His viewership is around 2.3, 2.5 million per episode. That's in comparison with Stephen Colbert. He has the same. If we look at Meet the Press or Face the Nation, also very, very popular news programs, political news programs, they're less than 2 million. That's less than Stephen Colbert. So we see those, they have real big ratings. So President Trump, in general, he doesn't like to be criticized, of course, we understand that. But he doesn't want to be criticized on those actually top-rated TV programs. Not political, but top-rated programs. So this is why we're seeing the push.
Late-night shows.
Yes, exactly.
I see. Okay. Again, you've mentioned courts and all that stuff, so I cannot leave that without mentioning. Donald Trump has also sued the New York Times and Wall Street Journal, and I cannot leave without mentioning that according to latest Pentagon restrictions, journalists are forced to obtain approval to publish stories. So, what is this all about?
When we were talking about those private companies, when we were talking about ABC, CBS, that's all not governmental. That's private business. But when we're talking about the Pentagon and when we're talking about that push from the government, this all comes to the First Amendment, to the American Constitution. Because when we talk about private companies, no, the First Amendment doesn't work. The owner of the company can decide whom he wants to see. But when we talk about The Pentagon? Congress shall make no law that somehow hinders free speech. This is how the First Amendment starts. Congress shall make no law. So the government shall make no law that hinders free speech. And the Pentagon is right now saying that everyone who is reporting on the Pentagon and on any decisions by the Pentagon, they have to first send their papers, their articles to the Pentagon for approval. And that hinders free speech, I must say. So, and all those lawsuits against Wall Street Journal and New York Times by President Trump are, of course, also a way to push those journalists to be more silent, to be more relaxed about the Trump administration. At least this is how it looks.
It's just, I'm thinking now, is the president of the country, the cradle of democracy, following some wrong examples?
That seems to be so, because everyone is talking about, of course, Russia, Hungary, Turkey, China, definitely. Everyone is talking about that, and everyone is remembering how did it all start in those countries. And that is why I use that word shock. People are in a state of shock. They don't know. Donald Trump is pushing the boundary. He's trying to test the boundary. And for now, we're seeing courts standing beside the journalists, for now at least, because that lawsuit against New York Times is most probably going to be dismissed. At least this is the sign from the prosecutor. And right now, of course, those private decisions about Jimmy Kimmel or Stephen Colbert are private, so there is no court in there. But for now, courts are standing the line. At least for now, we're seeing that. But in the end, it still is a very dangerous territory that they might enter. And of course, first of all, we remember about all those bad and, I must say, horrible examples.
So a country that has always been held up as an example when it comes to freedom of speech has recently been showing a great deal of hostility towards freedom of speech. So where, in general, is this situation leading us there in the United States and here in Europe?
This is the territory that is so beloved and so friendly to, for example, Vladimir Putin, to, for example, Russia. Russia that is working so hard to actually influence American politics, that is working so hard to influence European politics. We've seen all that. Their operation called Matryoshka that was reported on by Bloomberg, by New York Times, that they are trying to again, hinder free speech and show that, yes, Russia is actually the country that is following the ideas of democracy, the democratic country. So this territory is very dangerous, again, for the United States. But I hope we will see courts helping the Americans. And of course, a lot will depend on journalists themselves. As of now, the journalists are saying that they will not be pushed aside. They will move on with their work, but we will see how will it work. Because for now, we understand there were no court cases against specific journalists, but we might see it. Or we might see the revival and more, actually more free speech by journalists from the right side and from the left side too. This will a lot depend on exact people.
I invited you just to state that we have a really emerging problem about the freedom of speech back in US, which may echo back to Europe. And this is very, very important to mention.
Absolutely. And we see that, of course, we talk about the United States as the beacon of democracy, as that bright light, of course, that is shining everywhere. And when in the United States there are problems with the freedom of speech, or at least fears about the freedom of speech, of course, that light goes away little by little, and that might be dangerous for everyone. Hopefully, the American courts understand that. Now we're seeing time and time again, American courts are the ones that are holding everything together.
Keep up strong. Alexandra, thank you for joining us today, and I really hope to see you in our studio again.
Thank you very much for having me.
And I would like to remind our viewers that our guest for today was American studies expert, Alexandra Filippenko. You're watching TVP World. Stay with us.